So this year we used all of our horse manure compost for the main vegetable garden, and none of it was left over. We have some new manure compost going on over there by the barn, but it's not yet rotted fully enough to use in the other gardens. So we're actually purchasing some compost today, and I have a truck coming shortly. I've just cleaned out this area behind me, cut the grass and laid this tarp down. It'll go over this tarp and beyond it, but at least it gives a bit of a place to put it. Here on the farm we have very sandy soils, and they don't tend to hold water very well. The water drains right through them. So the best thing you can do with sandy soils is to add compost, organic matter. This will increase its friability and allow it to hold moisture longer, and also add nutrients to the soil. And with sandy soil, you have to do that regularly, or it just becomes like dust basically, and it becomes very hard to water it. The water just runs right off the sand, and the plants go into wilt phase very quickly when it gets hot, like it is right now at about 30 degrees. So many gardeners often refer to compost as black gold. That's because of the very black color that it has, because it's all decomposed organic matter, and because it also adds so many good characteristics to the soil, like the ability to hold water, the ability to increase aeration content of the soil, and the ability to add nutrients to the soil. So that's why it's often referred to as black gold. But there's another reason these days why it's called black gold, I think. That's because of how much it costs to buy it. This place we're getting it from is actually a bit of a deal compared to some of the sellers in the area, but still, it's not cheap. I guess that's what you pay when you're into a hobby like this, and I sometimes wonder why I am in the hobby, but I enjoy gardening. I enjoy gardening. I enjoy gardening. So there we are, about 15 cubic yards of dark organic compost. Beautiful stuff. Nice and moist to the touch. And really friable. It breaks easy, but you can see that it's got a lot of texture to it. When you crush it in your hand, it's really nicely textured. So this will be a good addition to our dry sand. So here's two little areas that I added compost to a few minutes ago. Basically, I just try to add about 3 inches or so on top of the existing soil, and then I fork it in with the garden fork. And you can instantly see how the quality of the soil changes. And I'll show you that more definitively in an area that I haven't done yet. But just totally changes the nature of the soil. Okay, so this is an area of the garden that hasn't had compost added to it. And you can just see how dusty it is. It blows in the wind. And this was pretty good soil when we put it here. And we've been adding a bit of horse manure throughout the years that it's been here, but nothing in a major way, and it's very dusty and dry. And that makes it even hard to water it in the summer. You try watering it with a hose and the water often runs right off the top. So I'll show you now, after I add the compost here, how this changes. So what I'll do here is spread about 3 to 4 inches of this organic compost on top of the existing soil, and then I'll fork it in with the garden fork, and you will see the transition.
I weeded this area the other day, but sometimes you'll still find more weeds and you can just pull them out as you go. So you can see how that's changed already. Now I'm digging fairly deeply down here into the old soil, so it's still fairly light looking and sandy looking, but I can just keep digging the top layer over and over to till it more completely, and I can even add more compost if I think it needs a bit more. And I think I may do that here because it's very deep soil, and it'd be good to get the compost all through it prior to planting some of our larger plants.
Well, good morning. It's Friday, June 2nd at about 6:30 a.m. I'm digging compost into this garden. I started working on this garden a couple days ago. I weeded the whole top surface because it had become quite weedy. Took out a few other plants that I didn't want anymore. And yesterday I spent parts of the day bringing barrels of compost out here, probably 12 to 15 wheelbarrows of compost I put on here, trying to get it about 3 inches deep on average. And this morning I'm digging it in to the top surface using a variety of tools, from this long-handled semi-spade shovel to a shorter spade to a garden fork. And the purpose is just to try and work the compost into the growing layer, which is the top, 5 inches or so for the most part. Keep in mind too that this compost will be worked into the soil by worms. They'll get in there and move it around, bring it down into the deeper levels. Once I get this dug in, I'm going to bring more compost out, make some areas thicker, and I have to do the edges here that are still uncovered for the most part. There's a sloped edge along here with a trench at the bottom that I've used to try to keep grasses out of the garden. Some of my other gardens I've lined the edges with rocks. They look very nice, but they're hard to maintain because the grass grows in between the rocks, and it's sometimes hard to whip or snip right up to the edge of the rocks. So this was an approach I took on this garden. It works fairly well, but you have to keep the edge clean because in heavy rains the soils will wash down into the trench and fill it up, and then the grasses can get back in again. Now this short spade is useful for working in between the existing plants, and basically I just use this twisting motion of the shovel to work the compost in. You don't want to get too close to the roots of these existing plants or you may damage them. So I just stay away from those to the degree possible. Just leave the compost sitting on top there, top dressing. So this was the initial garden I was working in, weeding it out and adding compost. Added a lot of wheelbarrows of compost to this one as well, and worked it in yesterday, finished working it in. And then I added a few of our potted dahlias, which we started growing in early spring. And they're out here now. They're looking a bit rough, but hopefully they'll spruce up a bit as they become accustomed to the soil and better growing conditions than what they had. So I'm just going to go get some more wheelbarrows of compost to finish up this garden. Add some to the edges and work that in. Then I'm going to take a pail maybe and add some more compost, thicken it up around the existing plants so they get good protection from the droughts, which we seem to be headed for already this summer. The last few days have been very hot and dry and humid. I'm out here with this long shirt and pants on right now because we have a lot of mosquitoes early in the morning, but it's really the best time to come out and work before it gets too hot. The sun is very searing too, I noticed, to the skin. Do as much as I can here in the early morning, and evenings are pretty good too until the mosquitoes come out. So in the 5 to 7:30 or 8 o'clock range usually.